Hello everyone, I'm Luan from imag'in and I haven't been posting for like 2 years, so I thought that would be a great idea to do a kind of introduction video to explain you a little bit about who I am, a bit of my journey, and why I am back on YouTube. I'm a photographer and a retoucher specializing in tourism and travel. I am currently based in France, but that's not where everything started, so I'm going to explain you a little bit about my journey. I won't tell you about my whole life, that's not the point, and I think that you really don't care. So let's stick with the photography topic and how I got to be a photographer. So I always liked photography, like a lot of people. That was a hobby for a while. I remember I started to shoot with a Canon 1100D. And I really like to make some photos of anything when I wanted to, and also create some kind of videos. And back in the days, I was actually more interested about videos, so I even got some gigs in videography to make videos, especially for a music show, because I was an audio technician. So I was around people who needed that kind of videos, so that's what I did. But yeah, I wasn't extremely passionate about it. And in 2017, I decided to go travel. So I bought one ticket to go to Australia, and I also bought my first mirrorless camera. That was the Sony A6000. I bought it because it was very small. I only had the kit lens, and that's it. Yeah, I left with that because that was really small, easy to travel with, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna take some photos and videos of my travel. Actually, initially I had the idea of making vlogs, which I actually never did during my travel. But yeah, anyway, I stayed in Australia for 2 years. I went to Bali and I started to create more and more content, especially photography and landscape photography, because I was surrounded by a lot of nature, a lot of different culture, and yeah, I really wanted to make beautiful photos, but also memories. So that was the main goal. And I think I was also making more videos than photography at that time. I have endless videos of sunset and road, which is completely useless, but I still have it in my hard drive. So yeah, photography was still a hobby for me. And after 2 years of staying in Australia and doing like backpacker jobs, so I was working in restaurants, in hotels, in factories, in farms, just the jobs that every backpackers do in Australia, I guess. After 2 years, I really started to burn out with the lifestyle of doing just only for the purpose of making money, spend my money in travel and making money. It started to be kind of annoying and depressing for me. I am someone who really need to invest my time and my energy into things I'm really passionate about. So yeah, it started to be a little bit too long of a time where I was doing things just for the sake of traveling and making money. So because I loved spending time in After Effects, my plan was to study motion design, then get a student visa in Australia while working for a company as a motion designer. And that was the plan. To save my money to pay for a student visa in Australia, I decided to move to Vietnam, so I had less expenses. I was studying online. I studied with School of Motion. So I moved in January 2020 in Da Nang, and then we all know what happened in 2020 after 2 months, I think, but that was already starting when I first moved there. So COVID happened, Australia closed their borders, which means I didn't have a plan anymore because I was not going to be able to do the student visa in Australia. So then in like a week, I had to decide whether I stay in Vietnam or if I go back to Europe. So at that time, I made the decision to go back in France because I thought that it was better to be in a place you don't like with the people that you love than being alone in a place that you love. So it's a topic that can be debated even today. That is the decision I made at this time. So I went back in France it was a full lockdown, so we couldn't go out or anything for a few months, I think. So I kept studying motion design and VFX with School of Motion, and on the side I was retouching photos. At that time there were many editing contests on Instagram, so I was actually editing other people's photos, and they were just a hobby as well. I even got my first freelancing gig with photo editing. I took that job because there was an Australian company, so I was so happy just because they were Australians, I think, and they paid me like $1 $1 per photo. There was background removal, and at that time it wasn't just a one-click thing like we have now with Photoshop, but thanks to this first freelancing gig, I'm very good with the pen tool. So yeah, still grateful for that. I made a little bit of money with this gig, but gained some experience. And then I managed to get a job as photographer and videographer for a museum in France. That was really terrible experience working with people that didn't really appreciate the work I was doing. So yeah, that wasn't a great experience. But at least I grew as a photographer and as a videographer. And at the same time, this is when I started to take photos of cities and publish them on Instagram. And that's when I really started to share my photos on Instagram. That's when I really started to think that I wanted to be a photographer. And people started to ask me to teach my style of editing. So I just shortly told you my journey. I had a big imposter syndrome at that moment because I didn't feel like teaching people what I was just learning to do myself. So yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't teach anyone at that time. Maybe there was like one or two lucky person. I did like a Zoom call with them to explain a few things, but I was like, no, I can't do that. Like, I didn't feel like talking and teaching about my editing when I never really worked in this area before. And actually, it's in that time that I learned that retoucher is actually a job. Like seriously, I had no idea I could do that for a living, and I wanted to start to go deeper with that. I didn't want to do videos anymore. It's something that I really didn't enjoy much. So yeah, I started to look around for a retouching job, and I managed to get an internship in Portugal for a photographer that was specializing in advertising. So yeah, I was a photographer assistant and with a focus on post-production. I work on incredible projects, like, you know, the kind of photos that you see in the metro, that you see outside when you walk, like very big advertising for the country. So that was really very rewarding to be able to work on this kind of project. I've been very challenging by the photographer. He gave me some personal project, and my favorite, I will add one of the photo here. I learned a ton, and I really gained confidence as well during this internship. So then I managed to find a job in Poland in a retouching studio, and that was a focus on cinema, e-commerce, editorial, a bit of advertising, and so in this studio there was like 80% of people retouching, which is something I didn't do much before because that was mostly a product from the previous studio. That was mainly a product, a little bit of people, and I was specializing in cities and landscapes. So yeah, I really learned to retouch people, photos, skin retouching, which is a big topic in retouching, a lot of work, and if it's not done well, it can be a disaster to look at the photos. So from there, I was having a full understanding of the retouching process. And yeah, my manager somehow advised me to take my own path, because during all those time, I kept doing travel photography and retouching and posting it on Instagram. And that was working well, and people kept asking me to teach them. But yeah, I wasn't too sure I could do anything with this kind of skill. And yeah, after a talk with my manager, he told me to just go for it and try. And both in Portugal and in Poland, I was working with incredible, talented people. Like, their skills were way better than me, and that was great. But everyone was always in awe with my work. And it took me a long time to realize that they were not in awe with my skills, but more with the vision I have to combine feelings and a place and combine it together to transport people to a specific place just by looking at it. So I took my own path and decided to start my own photography business. I started like a year ago, and let me tell you, in 1 year, I think I never felt that much things in my life. But I also learned so much about business, which is not something I'm very comfortable with. It's something I never learned the principles of business. My family don't own a business and no one around me, so it's something very difficult. It was very difficult to get to know people that started their own business, and even now sometimes I'm struggling a little bit to find the right people. But yeah, so what do I do today? I do photography for tourism businesses like hotel, restaurant, yeah, everything related to tourism. And I finally teach creative retouching for people who wants to learn and fall in love with editing. I've only been doing short kind of content on Instagram and for YouTube Shorts on TikTok, and it starts to be very frustrating because in 30 seconds you can't really explain very well to people what to do and how you should do this or that. And so it's really frustrating. My first, let's say, long form content I created is an ebook that I published like a month ago about how to find your style as a creative. I was really proud to write it. I got very good feedbacks and I'm very happy that it's helping a lot of people. I included some kind of exercise, so it's a step-by-step process to follow. So yeah, but I know that not everyone likes to read, and I want to be able to create longer videos to explain one specific thing, for example. So that is why I decided to be back on YouTube, and that is why you are watching this video today. So yeah, that was my story. I hope it's not too long. If you have any requests or ideas of tutorial you want to see or any question, just let me know in the comments. Don't hesitate to check out my Instagram or to sign up to get the ebook. All the links will be in the description. Like the video, it's helping a lot, and subscribe if you want to see the next ones.